Hi, welcome to 6.4 problem solving with two variables. Again, sort of each word problem section we do, it adds a little bit of a layer of complexity. So this one, what they're adding essentially is you now have a linear system to solve, which means you're going to have to find two equations, not just one, and then solve the equation. So I wrote down a couple of steps that I think people will find useful to solving them. Step one seems obvious. Read the question. Step two is probably the most underrated step in all word problems. Ask yourself, do I understand the question? If not, return to step one. Repeat step one until yes. Sometimes you have to read the question 4 or 5 times till you really understand what's going on. This isn't just for math problems, this is for any word problem you ever encounter in math or science or English. Sometimes you have to read it more than once. I frequently have to read them 4 or 5 times until I pick up all of the little details I need to solve a problem or truly understand what's going on. You don't necessarily have to have your equations ready before you move on, but you should really understand what's going on. Step three is identify your variables. We talked about this last time we did word problems. Step four is determine the relationship between the variables, and my hint here is to look for totals. And five, choose a method to solve. So we have three methods that you can choose to solve them. You can either choose graphing, you can either choose addition, or you can choose substitution. Those are the three ways we've gone over solving linear systems. So let's take a look at example one. Adult tickets to the school play are $12. The children's tickets are $8. If a theater holds 300 seats and the performance brings in $3,280, how many adults and children attend the play? So, if you don't understand what's going on, take a second and read it again. Adult tickets to the school play are $12. Children's tickets are $8. If a theater holds 300 seats and the performance brings in $3,280, how many adult and children attend the play? So you should have maybe not an understanding of how the numbers fit together, but you should have a pretty good idea that you've got a playhouse or somewhere or a theater with so many number of seats. All the seats are sold out. They give us how much money it brings in. And then once you really understand what's going on, then we'll go about trying to sort out the numbers and the variables. But we really want to sort out contextually what's going on first. Okay, so step number three is identify the variables. These will be the two things the question asks you to find. So we have adults, how many adults, and how many children attend the play. So we're going to have to talk about our variables again. And let's do this. Let's go A is equal to number of adults, and C is equal to number of children. So those are our two variables. So now we want to determine the relationship or relationships between the variables. There will be two relationships between the variables for all of these. They are going to be equations. We want to look for totals. So we have two totals in here. One is in terms of seats and one is in terms of money. Those are the two totals. These 12 and 8 aren't totals, they're just more information that we might need. So if this is step, identify the variables, 3, I want to look for totals. So my totals, and maybe I make a little chart here, I've got totals. I have 300 seats, and I have 3,280 dollars. Those are my two totals, and I want to figure out how I can put my variables together to find those seats. So if A is the number of adults and C is the number of children, well then adults plus children must equal the number of seats. So this has got to be A plus C is going to be equal to the total number of seats. Similarly, how do I find that total revenue? Well, if an adult costs $12, then the total amount they're going to get in from an adult is 12A, and children's tickets are $8, then 8C is going to be equal to 3,280. And that will be my two linear relationships to make the system that I have to solve. Independently, so if I just look at a plus c is equal to 300, that could be an infinite number of things. I could have one adult and 299 children, or I could have one child and 299 adults, or 150 adults and 150 children. All of those combinations would add up to 300. But if I add this second one, that the total amount of money brought in was $3,280, there's really only one solution. So I'm going to choose, and again, you have three options you could choose. You could choose addition, you could choose substitution, or you could graph this. I don't mind which, choose whatever you're most comfortable with. Personally, just because I think that this one's pretty easy to manipulate, this very first one, and my pen just died again. It came back to life, which is exciting. I'm going to choose substitution. So I'm going to rearrange A plus C is equal to 300. And I'm going to rearrange it by subtracting C from both sides. So I have an A is equal to 300 minus C. And then I'm going to substitute it into that second equation. I get 12 times 300 minus C plus 8C is equal to 3,280. 12 times 300, I think, is 3,600 minus 12C plus 8C is equal to 3,280. My 12C minus 8C, I think it's going to be a negative 4C, so 3,600 minus 4C is equal to 3,280. I'm going to now subtract 3,600 from both sides. I don't know what that is off the top of my head, so I can pull out my handy calculator here and I can plug it in. 3,280 minus 3,600, and that's going to be equal negative 320. And on my left-hand side, I have a negative 4C. I could divide both sides by negative 4. Again, I don't know what that is off the top of my head, so a negative 320 divided by negative 4, my negative 320 divided by 4 is equal to 80. So now I know that there were 80 children that came. I can then go back to my last step in my red equation and I can substitute that 80C in. What color haven't I used yet? Looks like blue. And I know that the adults are equal to 300 minus the number of children, which is 80. So I know that the number of adults were 220. So those two things are my answer. 80 children and 220 adults. Again, you don't necessarily need to solve by substitution. I just thought that'd be easy and fun and just a little bit more practice after the chapter that we just came out of. You could, if you wanted, solve it by graphing, or you could, if you wanted, solve it by addition. That one, solving by addition, also looks like it would work pretty well. And again, if you want to use technology to solve those, if I don't explicitly tell you which way to solve it and say choose a way, I think using technology is a completely valid way to go about it. So if you want to plug those into Desmos, go ahead, but you're still going to have to do a lot of work just coming up with those equations. Okay, the perimeter of a rectangle is 20. Twice the width minus the length is 4. What are the width and length of the rectangle? So again, if you need to read it more than once, read it more than once. I probably read it about 20 times writing it. So I'm just going to continue on to step 2, which is or step 3, which is define my variables. It's asking about the width and length. So let's call W. My pen just died for a second. Let's see if it'll come back to life. There we go. W is equal to width. L is equal to length. So this part is a little bit tricky. So my totals are really the only two numbers they give me. There's not really a whole lot to sort out here. So I've got a 20, and maybe I'll just write over here perimeter. and a 4. So how do I use width and length to get to 20? Well, if I'm trying to find the perimeter, so if I do a little sketch, perimeter is all the way around, length, width. Perimeter is all the way around, so length plus width plus length plus width, which if I simplify that, I've got 2 widths plus 2 lengths is equal to that total. And then for my second total, it's a little bit odd the way they've written it down. And I say they, but I should really take responsibility for that the way I wrote it down. Twice the width minus the length. So I can take that sentence and translate it straight into math. Twice the width is just 2 times the width minus the length. And that's going to be equal to 4. So again, I have 2 equations. And I am going to choose one of the ways to solve this equation. I'm going to arbitrarily choose another algebraic way just because I think it's a little bit easier than graphing. And I am going to choose, I think, addition this time. I'm going to do a 2, I'm just going to write them over here so I can do some algebra on them with a little bit more space. 2 width plus 2 times the length is equal to 20. And then I've got a 2 times the width minus the length is equal to 4. They're already nicely in columns for me. I think if I multiply the bottom one by a -1, I end up with, I'm going to keep the top line the same. And my next line becomes a -2w plus the length is equal to -4. And then I'm going to use my addition method. I'm going to add them together. My 2w minus 2w is going to be my 0. My 2l plus l is a 3l. And my 20 minus 4 is going to be a 16. I feel like I might have made a mistake here because I thought when I made this, I made them really nice answers, but it looks like I'm going to get a bit of a fraction here. I'm just going to take a second and see if I could spot a quick mistake. Perimeter is 2w plus 2l is equal to 20. That's accurate. My 2w twice the width minus the length is equal to 4. That looks pretty good. 2w plus 2l is 20. Twice the width minus my length is 4. And I multiplied that by -1. That's a negative, that's a positive, that's a negative. No, I'm stuck with it. 16, I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So I'm left with L is equal to 16 over 3. And that would be my length. If I want it as a decimal, I could go ahead and do that. I could do a 16 divided by, oh, I've made a mistake in my calculator already. Didn't like that. 16 divided by 3, and that's equal to 5.333. And then if I wanted to get my width, I would then have to take this 5.333 and substitute it into one of my equations for the width. I can do that. I can substitute into this bottom one here. So my 2w minus my length, which is 5.3333, and I was going to put some ellipses there so that we know it keeps going, is equal to 4. I'm going to add 5.333 to both sides, and I get my 2w is equal to 9.333. Divide both sides by 2. And my W is equal to 9.333 divided by 2. And that is equal to 4.666. So I get my solution. My length is equal to 5.33, and my width is equal to 4.66. Notice how if I chose to graph that one, it would be kind of gross, and it's actually substantially easier to do it algebraically. But it's up to you. Choose which one of those 3 methods you like most to try and solve them.
Thank you for watching, and I just wanted to remind you guys a couple of keys for success. Number one, you got to do the practice questions. If the things I'm saying make sense, that's phenomenal, but you still have to practice and make some mistakes on your own. And that goes along with number two. If you get stuck, ask me questions, get in touch, write me an email, make an appointment, or leave a comment on the YouTube video. And step number three to success is look after yourself. Eat good food, get some exercise every day, and socialize as much as you can right now. I hope you guys are all doing well, and I will talk to you soon.